Hey everyone, it's Tom Lamog, Guitars for Vets. I'm an instructor with the Cyber chapter, and welcome to the Guitar Shop. Today we're going to be focusing on a very popular topic. Actually, it's been something that we've been chatting about for several months. It's electric guitars, and I need to bring in my co-host, Daniel B. Hey Daniel,
What's up, Tom?
Hey, it's all about electric guitars, right? It's all about electric guitars, and I know you've been after me saying, Tom, we oughta do a show on electric. But then again, we started to talk about so many different things about electric guitar. And do you remember some of those things that we talked? There's pedals and there's amps, but
Oh, there's pedals, amps. We talked about just various pickups for guitar, the types of electric guitars. You have hollow body, semi-hollow body, solid body.
The list goes on.
It's just, yeah.
And then you got the
innovation of electric guitar, which came from acoustic. Acoustic was the grandfather of all, no doubt. But
yeah,
the electric guitar brought into the 20th century guitar into the 21st century now has brought a lot of innovations and designs.
There are things like obviously the names that are associated with electric guitar, some of the iconic models. If I say Stratocaster and Telecaster and Les Paul, the names of those guitar makers. There's that consideration, Gibson, Fender, and so on and so forth. So, and then the accessories, the strings, the picks, the this, the that. Needless to say, everyone, Dan and I have been talking for months about how we would go ahead and start. So for this show, we're going to do some things that are a little different. First of all, we would like you to be a part of the conversation. And if you have your electric guitar handy and you've got a couple of minutes to talk a little bit about why electric guitar interested you, we'll definitely go ahead and get you on screen with us and be a part of the conversation. We'd like to find out from you what the motivation behind making that electric guitar purchase. We also want to talk about some of the similarities and differences about electric guitar with what you're already familiar with, and that's the acoustic guitar. And then, of course, what are some of the buying tips? What are some of the things that we can impart upon you as instructors and electric guitar players? What are some of the considerations that we would like to let you in on so you can kind of save yourself the hassle of having to do some additional study up. So with that said, shall we bring in our panel? Should we go ahead and introduce, first of all, let me bring on our wonderful Director of Online Learning, and that would be Paul Lilley. Hi, Paul.
How you doing?
Good to see you. It's been a while. It's been a while since we've seen you on the Guitar Shop. Thanks for joining us.
Tom, I feel like I spent the morning with you. I just watched the last episode of Song Sung True, so good job with Tim Egan. That was awesome.
Oh, it was a fun interview.
You guys haven't seen that and you're interested at all about songwriting and how people approach it. There's a lot of good information in there that Tim provided.
Yeah, you never know where guitar is going to take you. And everyone here who's already taken their lessons, whether it be with an instructor or the self-study, it's kind of like you're probably now curious about, okay, now I want to look into other guitars. So you just never know where guitar is going to take you. And Tim Egan did some really interesting storytelling, shared some of his stories behind the music, and thanks, Paul. Thanks for bringing that up. And I know you've got at least a couple guitars to share with us for sure. So, but hold on to that because we want to bring on the rest of the panel here. Rich Haas, let me add you to the conversation. And we've seen Rich before. Rich, how you doing?
I'm doing great today. Thanks for inviting me.
Hey, listen, tell me about you. We've always had you on for acoustic guitar talks, the technical side, the Luthier experience that you had. And is it true that all Luthiers know how to work on all types of guitars, or is this very specialized for electric?
No, yeah, I think not. I think there's some basics. The geometry of a guitar is the same, basically, although the shapes look funny. But no, I have to shy away from the electronic stuff. It's just gotten so complicated. And it's so easy to screw it up that the electronics part of electric guitars is more tricky than I can handle at this point.
Real good.
And
So
my eyesight's going, and the parts are tiny, tiny. So it's a good thing for me to avoid.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us. And we've got John DeMarco, who is also one of our instructors for Guitars for Vets. He's joining us on the panel as well. And hey, John, are you an electric player, or are you an aspiring electric player?
Well, I was an electric player back when I was a teenager, and then I kind of had this whole life thing that happened, and so I stopped playing guitar completely. Started back up on the acoustic guitar, and then actually started building them. And so I actually, one of the guitars I'll show you today is an electric I built. But about 15 years ago, I bought a PRS and Santana, and I was looking for that humbucker kind of a sound, and I'm sure we'll talk as a panel about it. But no, it's just a different instrument, right? It's just it's the same chords, but it's a different instrument than an acoustic.
Very true. So if you're thinking, all right, I can just simply transfer the knowledge that I have about an acoustic guitar to electric. Would you say, I'm going to start with you, Dan, would you say that that's a true statement? I'm just going to transfer everything I know about acoustic to, it's not a trick question. Sorry to put you on the spot.
No, I mean, there's a lot of, if I get your what you're looking for, a lot of the differences come up into from acoustic to electric. I mean, come up in neck styles, body styles, as far as the guitar in general, the actual function of the guitar, what you need is a body and a neck to make the guitar. And then you start adding those electronics, and those electronics are what brings out volume and tone. And, you can change how the pickups operate, make combinations of the pickups if you have more than one pickup on the guitar. So the differences are very vast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So if you're thinking, there's some truth. I think, at least my experience has been, I'm an acoustic player primarily. And when I picked up my first electric guitar, I thought, all right, I can apply chords, and the string names are the same, the frets. There's some similarities. And then with this hour, we're going to talk about some of those differences that you need to be thinking about if you make that transition. But let's first go back to the motivation behind, wanting to pick up a Les Paul, or all this stuff that you've heard about a Fender Strat. What are some of the things? And Paul, I'll start with you on this one here. Can you share maybe what your motivation was when you contemplated the idea of playing electric?
And I still remember the day I got my first electric. We all can start a sentence like that, probably. I do want to say, though, when it comes to acoustic guitar playing and electric guitar playing, I kind of look at it this way. I like candy, so I like Snickers, and I like Three Musketeers. They're both chocolate, but they do a little bit of a different thing on your palate, and the ingredients are a little different, and one isn't better than the other. There's pros and cons, I guess, if we want to look at it that way. But I really kind of look at it as, if I love music and guitar playing, an acoustic guitar gives me the ability to really do some things that I can't on an electric, like maybe really play around with finger picking and slap strumming, and just some things that are really more geared towards an acoustic sound. An electric guitar, certainly I can explore. Try playing Eric Clapton's While My Guitar Gently Weeps solo on an acoustic guitar, and your fingers will hurt, because that is a very, very bendy solo. And so the electric guitar is built in a way where you can explore different things, not just with your fretting hand, certainly with your picking hand as well, but it just brings out different flavors. It's more like, the Three Musketeers bar than it is a Snickers. But I started for decades on acoustic guitar. That's what I played. I played at the summer camp, which is kind of where I learned. Played for church with a guitar. acoustic guitar sound hole pickup for my acoustic guitar. At that time, it was an old 12-string Yamaha that I only had 6 strings on it, and that guitar's served me for decades. I didn't get an electric guitar till after I'd been playing for 30 some years, so I was very late to the electric guitar game. The reason I got it is, and I'm so glad this happened because it opened so many doors for me. But the reason I got it is we started to meet once a month. I have 2 other brothers and a friend that play electric guitar, and they started to meet once a month in Akron, about a 2-hour drive from me. And I used to go down there on Friday nights, and we'd play live music in my brother's basement. And he had a drummer, he had sometimes a saxophone player, and then we didn't have a bass player. Everyone else played electric guitar. And I'd go with my acoustic guitar even when I tried to plug that little thing in, and I just could not compete. So the reason I bought an electric guitar in part was so I could play along with others and kind of match the style of music. They weren't necessarily playing acoustic style music. And that's a whole separate discussion too in terms of the style of music you get out of acoustic. If not for unplugged, I don't know that we'd ever think of acoustic as being able to do punk music, but certainly you could get that attitude on an acoustic guitar.
That's pretty groundbreaking. That was MTV who introduced, brought that to the mainstream, which was like, when I think of Eric Clapton, you just had mentioned that, of course, his unplugged. And
Layla.
how that changed exactly. How that just
Layla's a perfect example. What an awesome electric guitar song, and then the transition to that. Or we could say that about Hotel California when they played the acoustic Spanish beats on that. So that's what I mean. I like Candy, so I like them both. But
cool. That's a lot of good information there.
It really opened doors to playing with others in a band in a band setting, which I didn't have with the acoustic guitar.
What was your first electric?
A used Gibson Les Paul Studio, black with gold hardware. And I was on eBay buying it, which at the time, there wasn't Sweetwater, there wasn't Musician's Friend. So to buy a guitar sight unseen on eBay, most of you would have said, don't do that, Paul. That's the stupidest thing you could ever do. And I didn't. I was second place in the bid. I didn't win the bid. And I noticed the guy lived in Ohio. So this just shows you it was meant to be. eBay's international. This guy's selling a Les Paul and he lives like an hour from me. Well, I saw I didn't lose the bid. And when he went to sell it to the guy that won the bid, the guy backed out. So he contacted me and I'm like, I want to drive to your house and take a look at it. So I bought it.
Oh, nice.
And that's one I wish I still had. You just shouldn't sell your first. You just shouldn't do that.
Oh, geez. All right, I'll tell you my first. It was a Dean Evo, a Dean of all things, Evo. And it was like I had no idea what I was getting myself into. But I thought to myself, oh, I want to get louder. But I don't want to go too deep into it. But it's basically, that was my first. I'll just get that out of the way right now. I want to ask you, John DeMarco. John, because, again, we all start somewhere in terms of an interest in electric guitar. Do you remember some of the anxieties about, I don't know if I want to do this, or even some of the, no, I definitely need to do it, that basically it was the thing that pushed you over the edge to make the decision to go out and acquire an electric? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, I mean, so when I was a teenager and I was, in garage bands, I would always borrow somebody else's electric guitar. I had an acoustic that I used, but and at one point I remember trading an amp or something like that. And my first electric guitar was a Fender Mustang, and boy, do I wish I still had that. 50 years later or whatever it is. But my story is much like Paul. I started playing again a little bit, and then I had friends from work and friends who started playing. And as soon as you put a drum set there in somebody's basement, you just got to get louder. And so that's why I broke down and got the PRS a number of years ago. Why did I get it? Well, I bought it used. I bought it because, actually, I'll show it real quick here.
Yeah.
I bought it because Santana has always been one of my huge heroes, and it's a PRS Santana model. So the one horn is a little bit shorter than a lot of the PRS are, And
That was one of his first models, right?
yeah, yeah. And he played a Gibson SG for a long time, and I think even a Fender back in the day. But probably the last 20, 25 years, it's all been PRS. And so, just being such a huge fan, I decided I was going to get this one. And of course, that it leads you to this problem where you have to continually buy pedals and amplifiers, and it really becomes quite a what's my next toy I can buy?
Was that a fear or an incentive?
Let's just say my wife has a fear of me coming home with one more pedal, right?
The ironic thing, John, is I also find that we are always selling guitars and amplifiers and pedals too.
Yeah, it's exactly right. You try them out, and if they work, that you keep them, and if they don't, then you pass them on. Yeah.
I have a friend, I've got this philosophy. I have a friend that has 7 or 8 electric guitars, and he buys an electric guitar, he falls in love with it. So he's an adoptive parent. I'm a foster parent. I get them in through the house, I get them all cleaned up, I play with them a while, and then I send them off so I can make room for another foster child.
Oh, I like that. I'm going to use that.
Yeah. So it's and it's funny because the whole thing with that guitar is I wanted the humbuckers, and that's one thing maybe to mention to everybody is there is a definite difference in sound between humbuckers and the single coil pickups on the Strats. And so my two main guitars, one is a Strat, like it's one that I built, and again I'll show it here real quick here, but pretty much a Strat shape, and but it's got those single coils, and there's just some songs that's the best sound you can get, and then there are other songs where the humbucker sound is what you're really after. And of course you can put different amps and different pedals on it, and it changes the characteristics of both of them. That's the kind of thing, is you kind of like put all this stuff together and then turn on the blender, and you're not sure what you're going to come up with necessarily, but it's always fun. So,
and you can compare what it is that you're talking about, John, all of the different possibilities with building your sound, starting with the electric guitar and the features on the electric guitar, and then the accessories and so on and so forth. But Rich, I want to go to you now, and let's talk about some of the similarities between the acoustic guitar and the electric guitar. And then we can also talk about, some of the, the different, you're not going to find this on an acoustic guitar. And, but at least I know you work primarily on acoustic guitars, but are there times where you come into someone who says, I've got an electric guitar and I want you to do this, and what your response typically is?
Yeah, well, I'll work with the geometry of the guitar. So electrics, of course, are a little bit heavier than acoustic guitars. Matter of fact, several years ago, a guy brought a beautiful Les Paul into me, and it was just too heavy. Electric guitars weigh several pounds more than an acoustic, and he wanted me to hollow out the body of his Les Paul, and I said, that ain't gonna work. So I bought it from him. Told him to go buy a hollow body if that's what he wanted.
That was your evil plan all along.
No, it wasn't intended.
I like that service philosophy.
I've got the same illness most of us do. Once you start buying guitars and looking at them, you never get enough. So, although I'd like to say I'm an acoustics guy, I've got several electrics as well. I don't play them as much because the action is so low that it just amplifies all my mistakes, and I'm a terrible finger player, so I don't like to amplify my mistakes. I'd rather score my notes with my acoustics.
Put a good drive pedal, overdrive pedal in front, you'll be fine.
Well, that's the other issue. I like the acoustic because I can just throw it on my back and go someplace and play. With the electrics, I got to carry cables and amps and boxes and stuff that I don't really always understand. It takes me half an hour to get things tuned up and set up. Well, yeah, I'm not that advanced. But, once you learn to play the basic chords, you can play either guitar. Once you like strumming, it sounds good on both guitars, and you can change the tone on electrics, which acoustic, you live with the sound that you bought. But the beauty of an electric guitar is with all of the synthesizers and pickups and stuff, you can modify the sound or the tone and the sound, the volume. People like it that you can blast it or turn it down. So the electric's more fun. The neck's, a little bit longer. So if you don't like reaching, you've got a few more frets to reach at. And the scale is usually a little bit longer than the acoustic scale, but it's a 1/16 of an inch that I guess a real good guitar player can feel that. A schmuck like me, I can't feel the difference between the frets. But if I'm gonna, practice a song, I try to stay on the same guitar because the spacing is different. I love the low action. It's great for barring. It's great for sliding and all that sort of thing. But that's about it. You play it about the same. The strings are closer, and the action is lower. So that's where all of the good bluesy stuff comes from. You can slide it and do all the tremolo stuff. Finger picking is a little bit tougher because the neck is narrower on an electric guitar, so the strings are a little bit closer. So if you have clumsy fingering like I do, it's not your friend. Just makes it that much challenging. But it's fun to bar chords. So, like I say, with everything else we've ever talked about, there are trade-offs, there are varieties. So the versatility of an electric guitar is, it's hard to beat. And like I say, I've got a couple because I've got the illness and I have to have guitars.
Of course. All right, Rich. Well, I'm gonna turn to Dan and talk about strings. Let's kind of like get that out of the way, because are the strings the same on an acoustic as they are an electric? I tend to believe not. So,
No.
what's your experience with that, Dan?
And correct you are, Mr. Tom. They are different.
Yeah.
You cannot take a set of acoustic strings that are phosphorus bronze or the 8020s, although they do make some stainless steel acoustic strings.
Mm-hmm.
Might as well just put a set of electric guitar strings on that acoustic then if you're using them. Acoustic strings are mostly made out of stainless steel and nickel. So there's a vast amount of difference there. They do have a thinner gauge. As far as I know, the lowest so far I've seen for an acoustic, although I think you can get a set of 009 gauge for acoustic, but most people generally use 11s or 10s.
I think I've got some
myself on electric. I mean, you can get 10, 9s, 8s. You can do 11s. You can do thicker strings too, if you can. A lot of jazz players like thicker strings. I myself like 8s. I use the lightest gauge I can get.
Wow.
Do you break strings a lot with
No.
8s? No.
Okay. And that comes with the particular brand that I use. There are brands that have a tendency to break more than others, and that's their composition.
With the strings, the differences in strings, and I can tell you, there are certain things on acoustic that I try not to do because it could injure my fingers. The bending, you can do vibrato, right? There are certain things that you can do better on an electric because of the strings. The trills, for instance, these are techniques that are not anything that we really try on acoustic. I mean, we guess we could, but what can we definitely do on electric? And
the ability to take the tension.
Oh, good Lord. Yes. The tremolo bar and bending and stretching. Hey, are you on Original Sound for Musicians? We can't hear you. We can't hear you playing guitar. And we need to hear what exactly a tremolo bar does. If you don't know, some of these guitars have the ability to actually change the tone, through a tremolo bar. Go ahead, Dan. You want to try playing it again? Got a little of that. Okay. Yeah, the fun of...
Hey, Dan, I've got a question. Is there a difference between a whammy bar and a tremolo?
Well, tremolo per se technically is using your pick and just doing this.
Okay.
That's tremolo.
So
and then there is the tremolo effect, but they call these tremolo bars, I guess, because you can still get that.
Oh, okay.
My understanding, Rich, is a trem, and that's the Fender language on all of their Fender guitars. A trem bar allows you to push down so you can get a pitch up. A whammy bar
Right.
allows you to go both ways. So
Go
you
both
could do, they
ways.
call
Yep.
it dive bombing. You could go really low or really high.
Huh.
A trem bar only is forgiving in a push down. It's
Oh,
not
okay.
really a pull up.
Ooh, nice.
And the other, there is another name that they do call them a vibrato bridge.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So there's many names.
Oh.
Well, real good, real good. Let me ask, John, let me go back to you now about playing, because you're playing acoustic and electric as well. Was there any difficulty in the size of the body? I mean, really, the depth of the acoustic guitar, and then you're able to go ahead and rest your arm on that. And when you go to an electric, it's kind of like, oh, my arm rest is gone, and play. Did you find that to be challenging at all?
It is, and in fact, it's interesting. But when I play acoustic, I sit a lot, and I play with it on my knee, like you'd expect. With the electric, I almost always have to wear a strap.
Oh, yes.
For a couple reasons. One is to kind of get it to the right height for me, and the other thing is it is electrics are just way heavier than an acoustic. So for me, the comfort thing is if I wear if I'm going to play an electric for any amount of time, I've got a strap on it. I don't know, guys. I think electrics are like 8-9 pounds a lot of times.
Yeah.
And more.
Yeah, and a good strap. I would just say this: a good strap, for me, a wide strap, especially if I'm jamming with some friends and we're standing up the whole time. I tend to wear it kind of high, kind of like that guy who used to play with Steely Dan. I think his name was Walter Becker or something like that. He always wore it up nice and high, and that's kind of how I do it. But it's a different shape, and it's not as, frankly, to me, it's not quite as comfortable as an acoustic, but it's just different. So again, like I say, strap almost all the time, even if I'm sitting.
All right. Real good. So our conversation today for our guests is focusing on things you need to know about transitioning to the electric guitar. If you were interested in acquiring an electric guitar and you're an acoustic player, there are definitely some similarities, but there are also some differences that we're trying to bring to your attention. So if you have a question, go ahead and throw it in the chat feature. And if you would like to also ask the question to the panel, just raise your hand, or if you'd like to also share your guitar, we're going to open that opportunity up for everyone. But for right now, let's go ahead and I'm going to show you mine first. The show and tell now begins, and Paul, you're on deck because you got a couple, and then we're going to go around the table here. So this is a Yamaha silent guitar. The Yamaha silent guitar was something that was of interest to me because I'm admitting the fact that I'm an acoustic player. Yeah, I do know how to play electric, but I find myself gravitating towards acoustic. And this particular guitar, it has built-in electronics. I can't really see it that closely, but you see the knobs. There are knobs there, and I can adjust the volume and the tone and the special effects, and that's kind of what makes it more of an electric guitar. And I like playing this when I am in an area where I can't really make a whole lot of noise. I just plug in my headphones. But I've taken this to gigs as well too, in spaces where the stage are just so tight that it's like, you know what, I'm just going to use this. It's fun to play. Not every gig, but the ones that don't have a whole lot of stage space, I go ahead and use. But I totally dig it. It's not natural sound. It's obviously something that is processed, which makes it an electric guitar. But it sounds kind of like an acoustic. You get the idea.
Are they
Yamaha.
acoustic or electric strings?
These are acoustic strings.
Okay.
Yeah. I have put electrics on here before just to, I don't know if you guys have done that. Have you guys put electric strings on your acoustic just for the thrill of it, to see what it sounds like? And I thought, oh, no. This is not working for me. This is an acoustic guitar. So I'm sticking with that. So, anyway, that's my contribution to today's show and tell. I really like it. It's a travel guitar too. I mean, it breaks down. It requires like a battery, a couple of AA batteries, if I want to take it like to some place and jam with the headphones and all. But I like it.
Not 7 pounds.
It's not. It's really light. It's really light, and it doesn't take a lot of space. Yes, Daniel.
Your pickup on that is under the saddle. Is that the piezo?
It's
type pickup?
Yeah. So it's right
Which
here.
is why you can use acoustic guitar strings, by the way, folks.
There you go.
Because
It looks-
phosphorus,
yeah.
bronze, and 80/20s don't pick up on an electric guitar pickup. They're not
And trust me,
magnetic.
When you
It's not so much magnetic; it's a vibration or something that has to do with it. It just does not work too well.
Yeah, exactly. And to
Vice
be honest
versa.
with you, it's like if I start to feel like these are electric guitar strings, I want to play it like an electric guitar, and I can't turn it up that loud. Like turn it to 11 like everyone's supposed to. It's like, oh no. This is not working. So anyway, Paul, what did you bring? What would you like to share?
It's hard to talk about electric guitars without talking about amps, but so as a foster parent, I'm interested if any of you others have a system when you get a new child into your home. So I mentioned I foster children, and whenever I get a new guitar, most of the guitars I buy are used, but this was a Gibson Les Paul Standard that was made at the factory for me. So they included a nice on the bench before it went into the case, and the original paperwork from where I bought it. So I kind of geek out and I start a file for each of my guitars. I've got a beautiful Fender, and they had a really nice switching diagram with it that I kept with it, along with kind of the woods that it's made out of. So I kind of have a file on each of my kids. So
It's like your lyric sheet for your album, It's like, yeah.
So this is a Gibson Nighthawk. When I told you I started with the Gibson Les Paul studio, I thought I was a Gibson guy. I didn't even know what that meant, but I loved Gibson. I got this guitar a while ago. It's a 1996 Gibson Nighthawk. That's not the truss rod cover that came with it.
That's cool.
That's like guitars for vets.
It was a very unique guitar for Gibson at the time because they were competing with Fender, and Fender had a really good decade in the 90s and Gibson didn't. If you're into Gibson at all, there's some quality control issues they were facing. But this was the first Gibson guitar that they made that had the pull-through strings, which I really like when I'm changing my strings. It's very stable. So that you actually pull the ball end, you pull it through the hole here and through the body when you're stringing it up, so it comes over the bridge and up, and it just has a lot of stability. Gibsons just don't do that. That was a Fender thing. The other thing that was unique about the Nighthawk is Gibson didn't really have single coil pickups, and obviously that's what Fender was known for. They call it the Fender Quack, or the Strat sound. I don't know if it was Rich or John who had mentioned there's a whole discussion about the sound between a humbucker and a single coil. But Fender was really known for a lot of things, but certainly their single coil sound, and Gibson everything came out with humbuckers with them. So this was a very unique guitar, and what I liked about it is it's got push-pull pots. Between the three pickups, the neck humbucker and the back humbucker are completely different sounding humbuckers. And the 5-way switch allows you to get all these different sounds from it, including, as close as you can at the time with the Gibson, the Fender single coil kind of quack sound. So it's just a beautiful guitar. It's a thinner guitar. I don't think this weighs more than maybe 5 pounds. It's very thin. It's very comfortable. I love guitars that show a lot of the natural wood. I don't like a lot of painted black guitars. I mean, they're cool, and my Gibson Les Paul was all black when I got it. But as I've gotten older, I really love more and more guitars are pieces of art to me, and I really love seeing some of the original wood with it. If you are a Gibson owner, or actually this is true of almost anything you own, all of the electric guitar companies have some sort of way that if you wanted to find out more about your guitar and you got it used, so a lot of information didn't come with it, they all have serial numbers on different places on the guitar, and you can actually go to the maker's website and put your serial number in, I'm going to say with most of the major companies. And it'll tell you the year it was produced, the woods that were used, anything special about it, the pickups that were used. So for example, with the Gibsons, they kind of have a couple different ways they do this, but this is going to be hard for you to see. They imprint the serial number there. And in the 90s, the first and fourth digit, which is, if you could see that as a 9 and a 6, that's telling me the year the guitar came out of the factory. So this is a 96 Gibson Nighthawk.
Awesome. That 5-position switch, I mean, I remember that on the Strat. It's kind of like, wow, this is really innovative. But can you play that quack sound? Maybe we can hear a little bit of that.
So the other thing about, the quack sound is you need a clean amp. So I'm playing around. It's a Spark amp, and I can change amps on my phone. So right now I'm on a dirty amp. Let me get to a clean amp here.
Should sound just fine through a computer.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Turn it up to 11.
Let's just try this one. It says Beatles. It's a Beatles amp. That might not be a clean amp, but so I'm generally I'm gonna use my pickup selector switch to target my single coil, obviously. Probably can't hear that. Are you hearing that?
Yeah, we can hear it. Perfect.
Now this is a Black Starish amp, so it's kind of dirty still, but
got an idea, sure. Awesome.
The other guitar I had, I was looking at John's Santana with Envy. I think the PRSs they're like tailors to me. They make gorgeous pieces of instruments. PRS puts so much into their style. I fell in love with the Bird fretboards when I saw my first PRS guitar. They don't make a lot of them. They have one acoustic line, the Angelus, if I'm saying that right. Mm-hmm. And that's what I ended up getting initially, was a PRS acoustic guitar. But I have 2 PRS electric guitars, and I love them both. The one I posted in the community is a PRS. I think I said it was a 514. I may have made a mistake. It's a 513, but it's the same idea. It's, again, this is a very special single coil that Paul uses, and I play in a cover band, and we do a lot of Eagles and CCR and country, so I need a quack sound. So my Les Paul standard wasn't cutting it. And so these are really nice because you could get a single coil sound at least and get by on some of those country songs, but the PRSs are really known for their double humbuckers as well. They have a really nice rock sound to them. But this is they call this a Swiss Army knife for the touring guitar player, just because of all the different tones you could get out of the combination of the pickups.
And I want to
beautiful guitar.
I want to ask you this, Paul, is when it came down to selecting that particular guitar or any of your electric guitars, you had something in mind. You had an idea of the tones that you want, rather than I'll get this because it's made by Paul Reed Smith, right? I mean, you had some things in mind that you wanted when you purchased that guitar versus I'll just get it to play it.
I'm probably not the best to answer this, because I think I've really grown as a guitar. I'm still growing very much, I hope, as a guitar player. And I hope I'll say that till I die. But when I started playing in a cover band, it was a whole different challenge for me, because I just wasn't used to playing, frankly, with anything that resembled time and tempo. So now I have a drummer who's keeping me honest and a bass player who's keeping me honest. And I learned I'm not really good at rhythm with certain parts of songs. So I started with my Gibson in this cover band, and like I said, the humbuckers just wasn't what I needed in a lot of the songs. And I bought a used Fender that I love for that sound, but it couldn't do any of the harder rock stuff we did. So for a while, I was just bringing both guitars. And then I started looking at, guitars that had humbuckers and single coils, and that's kind of what led me to the other PRS I have is a hollow body because I'm getting older and they are heavier guitars, but it's the F hole and a Gretsch hollow body. And those are really nice because you put those on after wearing any of these guitars and you feel like a young man.
Well, real good. Hey, listen, I want to bring on one of our guests who's actually joined us, Ken. And, Ken is an active member of our G4V Learning Center community, graduate as well recently.
Yes.
And you've been dabbling in some songwriting, haven't you? Have I noticed that?
I have.
So let's hear your story about pursuing electric guitar now that you're a graduate of the G4V learning program.
All right.
What were some of the things that you remember being challenging and rewarding?
So Paul might remember this acoustic that I started out with and the high action that was on it, and I couldn't get the A chord when I was doing iTag. I couldn't get it to work. Just couldn't get it, and then I posted in the community and I asked, I was like, what's going on? What's causing this? And Paul was like, the action was too high. I don't think you can fix it. You'll need to get another guitar. And I was like, okay, well, didn't really have a lot of the money for one, and he's like, well, borrow one. So I asked around a couple friends, and one of my buddies, he had one like this, that he started out with, and he was like, hey, you can use this. And then later on, I was like, I really like it. And he also had a Telecaster Fender, so I tried it out too, and was playing with it while I was doing my courses with Dan, and we went on, and I just liked this Les Paul version better than I did the Fender. It just sounded good to me, and it worked good. And then later on, after a little while, I was able to get up the money, and I went to Guitar Center and I bought this package. It's a Special 2. It's a cheaper, Epiphone starter pack, and it came with the amp. It came with the cable and picks and everything, and it just it worked out really good for me. It sounds great. My buddy, he does Luthier work, so he was able to tune it up for me and set it up, and it just plays so much easier. I was able to hit that A chord in all my classes, so it really helped, and it made it easier for the bar chords when I was practicing them, and able to get those. And then when I got the new Yamaha, I think it's in the living room, I use it to play my son to sleep, to take naps. But I've been writing lyrics for a long time, and I wanted to learn how to play the guitar to finish out the songs. So that's why I came to Guitars for Vets, and I was able to learn how to play a little bit. And I feel like I'm doing pretty good. Classes were excellent. My teacher was outstanding. He kept me going because I'd taken iTag and I'd gotten so far ahead, but he kept pushing me the whole time, and it was great. I learned more than I ever thought I would, and I've come a lot further than I ever thought I would. And I've got 3 or 4 songs that I've written. Another thing that I got with this electric guitar is I got this Behringer. It's kind of it's an interface, a cheaper one, but it plugs right up into my MacBook Air, and I can connect it to GarageBand, and then I've got access to all these amps and pedals and everything you could ever want, and change the sound however you want it, without having to go out and buy it all. So I get to test out a lot of stuff, and it sounds, as realistic as a computer, I guess, could make it sound.
It sounds like you're really moving forward. from just, the things that we taught you in your lessons, your acoustic
Yes.
lessons. And this is so awesome. It's so, thanks.
Yeah.
Ken, thank
Yeah,
you for
I-
sharing that. Yeah.
I appreciate everything that this community's done for me. Like I told Dan whenever we were taking the classes, I never expected to be able to learn anything. I had a stroke in 2019, and my memory's not that great, and some of my motor skills aren't perfect. But with his help and just constantly practicing and doing it, I'm able to do a lot more than I thought I could. And if it wasn't for me finding this community and these classes and the iTag specifically, it helped so much. And I look forward to electric guitar version of it if we can do that, because I think it would be great. I think the community would learn a lot from it, and y'all are great. I appreciate every one of y'all so much. Y'all would never know.
Man, we appreciate you. We really thank you for
Thank you.
for those kind words.
Okay,
Thanks,
thank
Ken.
you for
Thank
sharing.
you.
Appreciate that. DDJ actually had a really good question, and I think I can respond to it.
Oh, well, you know what? You know what? Hey, I have been secretly conversing with DDJ, and we're going to get him up here in a moment. But before we do, I've got Dan Spiegelberg coming up here because he
Let's
was
rock.
one of the entries that he left with us on the G4V Learning Center, and I thought, dude, you got to share your story with us and show us your guitar. So DJ, hang on, okay? So don't go anywhere. We're gonna put you on deck. All right. Hey, Dan, thanks for joining us. It's good to finally get you on the panel. And
But I just have an acoustic.
okay. Well,
I've been
What's your
blinking
story?
my fingers a little bit.
is this are you looking to make the jump to electric? Is that you're thinking about it?
Yeah, I'm really interested. Don't know. Rich's comments were great. All of the panel so far has been great, but Rich gave a lot of pros and cons that I liked.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I kind of know what I should look out for, and I just need to go sit in a guitar store and play some stuff.
That's right.
I'm going to bring Rich back here because he's going to
appreciate
tell you
you
about
guys.
his.
Yeah.
He's got a
You did great
checklist.
job.
Yeah. Yeah, we got to check that. Hey, one point I haven't brought up, when I was working with Guitars for Vets in town at the VA hospital, we believed that playing an acoustic guitar, the vibrations of the guitar helped us calm ourselves down. So you feel that in your chest and, your upper body, or, it really seemed to work. It works for me a lot. So that's one of the real advantages of an acoustic guitar. That vibration has actually been documented to be a relatively good calmer for people. So that's why we've used it at Guitars for Vets as kind of a PTSD treatment, somewhat part of it. So anyways, that's another real nice advantage of acoustics. So yeah, I've got this checklist for buying guitars, and I think we've discussed a lot of it. And all I can say is we got to emphasize it's all personal choices. And for a lot of us, it's something that comes and goes, depends on what month you're out shopping. So we've got this checklist, and it's written mostly for acoustics. The biggest difference when you're buying an electric, in my opinion, is the electronics. What I've discovered is, there are so many different types of pickups and so many different types of effects. You need to know what you're looking for before you spend money on it. The other thing I've noticed on some less expensive electric guitars, the switches and knobs aren't always as responsive as we need. So if you're buying an electric guitar to get good true sound, it's important to check all of those switches and knobs. I found that some of the cheaper ones, they'll work at the real low end or the high end, and usually the middle range on some of those dials just don't quite work and they get scratchy. So other than that, you're looking at pretty much the same stuff you would with an acoustic guitar. You want to make sure that you got a nice straight neck. A lot of stuff can be repaired, but when you're buying a guitar, you want to make sure you can play with it as soon as you bring it home. So a good straight neck, and the neck has got to be straight laterally and vertically, and make sure it's not warped. On an electric guitar, you want to look for the bridge. And that's probably one of my apprehensions about electric guitars. The bridge is more sophisticated than it is for an acoustical guitar. It's great if you understand it because you can set your intonation and tune it up. But so you want to understand the bridge operation. There's 3 or 4 different types of electrical bridges that are much more electric guitar type bridges that are more adjustable than the acoustic. So they're a little bit more complicated. But I would say other than that, there are differences, but you're playing the same instrument. You just can make different effects with it. I've had a friend with a synthesizer. He made his guitar, and I think it was, I don't remember what kind of guitar, but anyways, he had a synthesizer. He made it sound like an organ. He made it sound like a trumpet, and it just kind of blew my socks off. But the electronics piece, and that's it. The rest of the guitar stuff is the same. I've heard some, and I don't remember where I heard or read it. Guitars are kind of like macaroni, like pasta. They might look different, but for the most part, they're the same. They make the same music. They play the same notes. They just have different ways of presenting them. So anyways, this checklist, we've got it posted, and I guess we'll be glad to answer any questions or answer any emails anyone's got. And if you come up with any other opinions, I'd like to add it to my list.
Thanks.
I didn't want to take too much time, but that's my lecture.
Well, no. Thank you very much. I know we've talked about that in previous guitar shops that we've had. It's nice to revisit that list. It's a solid list that anyone can go ahead and refer to. I want to bring up DJ for his input because he actually added comments on the G4V Learning Center to today's event. And David, would you like to go ahead and share with us what it is that, first of all, your thoughts about making this jump to electric guitar and what you've got to share with us?
Well, can you hear me?
Just project. Just project. You'll be fine.
Project. All right. I'll turn it up a little bit.
There you go.
I was very nervous about trying an electric guitar back in the mid-10s. I've been playing for 50 years on the acoustic guitar, and I said, okay, I'll play an electric guitar. And I bought a Keith Urban off of HSN and never played it, but I bought some other guitars that I have played a bit. So I'm kind of a hobbyist in doing that. And what I found, and what I wanted to talk about today, was presenting 5 features that I've found on electric guitars that you're not really going to see on acoustic guitars. Now, the first one, this is a George and Leo G&L guitar. It's got triple humbuckers on there, and it's got a 5-way switch, as Paul was talking about. Oh, there we go. And so he's described what happens with the 5-way switch, but what also happens is that you can't get the first and the third one to go together if you have the middle one off. So what I've got on here, and you might run into this, is a little switch down here that puts it between, if 1 is on, 3 will be on, and if 3 is on, 1 will be on. Okay,
it's a mod. Now that's a Leo Fender, right? It's a Leo Fender aside from the Fender brand itself, right?
Yes, that's a second company.
Just curious, what made you go with that guitar?
With this one?
Well, yeah. What motivated you to acquire that one?
Price.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's a factor. Like for sure, a
it's
factor.
One of those musicians' friends' stupid deal of the day. I don't know if you're familiar with musicians' friends. That's where I buy most of my stuff from.
You made it hard for you to say no. Cool. I got a friend who owns a G&L, and he's like, "No, I don't want to get a Fender. This is my guitar." It's like, "Yeah, okay, all right." So hey, it doesn't have to be anything expensive if you like it. It does what you need it to.
$300.
What's that?
It was $300 at the stupid deal of the day. So it
So
was pretty
yeah,
good.
that's great. You don't? Do you
Here's an
have to
example
go?
of it.
Do you have to go with the name brand? I think that from everything that we're all talking about, no, it's like it's really personal preference. So
Well, I consider GNL a name brand to me for intermediate, beginning intermediate.
sure,
It's obviously not so much for as a professional. But
the
it is a good
mainstream.
intermediate brand.
they're not. Yeah.
And while
What
I'm
else?
here, here's this sound with just the neck pickup. And here's the sound with both of them by switching that switch.
You can hear
see
that
the
for sure.
difference, the more fullness of it.
Hmm.
And then I have a Schecter Guitar Research. In other words, this is about $1,300 new, and I just love it. I bought it for my birthday last year, so it's my birthday guitar. I'm as Paul says, I'm an adopter. I'm not a foster care. I just keep them because I love working on them, and I love keeping them and playing them over and over again. The features on this that I wanted to point out, and you've pointed out, Paul, you pointed it out, are these push-pull pots here. Oops. And I just want to get a hair more in depth. If you pull them out, these become single coil pickups. I don't know. So the sound is a little bit deeper, quieter. Whereas if you push them in, same strum, you're getting a much broader, you're getting the big sound. So you got to turn it up if you want the louder sound once you go to the single coil pickups. Also, this is a real surprise to me. I didn't even know this. This guitar has active pickups. Now, very few electric guitars have active pickups, but if you, yours does, yes. That's what to look for, is that little, why does my thing
It's a battery case. Okay.
Yeah, you got to look for this battery case, and if you don't have it, I don't know what's there.
It's because your background is on, DJ. That kind of warps it.
Ah, okay.
But we
I
can
don't want
see
you
it
to see
there.
the mess in my room.
We
All
can
my
see.
guitar mess.
Tell
But
us
if
the
you don't-
model, and we can look it up as well. If the model of that Schecter, is it a particular model?
This is a Hellraiser Solo. And not all Hellraisers have active pickups. But if you don't know about this and your battery dies, you're out of luck. So I have to throw a battery into my case when I go to a jam just to make sure that I have it.
Always good advice. Carry that battery, sure. Those are things that we haven't talked about. The these features that you're
The
sharing.
other thing, the fifth one that I wanted to get in was the bridge type. These are the normal. I'm not talking about fenders because that's a separate issue. But most bridges have these slots, other than fenders, that you put the guitar strings in. And they're fine. There's no problem with that. What I prefer, because I do a lot of string bending, are these roller bridges, which I put on all my electric guitars because they do help get a little bit more roll, and it really wouldn't matter if you didn't use it very much, if you didn't do a lot of bending. Okay, I think I've got just a few minutes. I wanted to share two tools that I find indispensable. This one is the fret ruler, and it works on universal. This side, you can take a guitar, put it on, You put it on the fret. I guess I'll come back. And you can see what kind of bend you have. And if it doesn't work on this side, you take it and put it on this side. And I guess that's the side that it would be for me. This one's got a little bit of a bend in it, which is okay. But it actually makes a very good weapon too. If you
So yeah, this is very cool. I can tell you. Let me bring Rich onto the panel again. John, let me bring you as well too. What you're showing is you a step beyond, like, just the regular player. But these are great considerations. It's like, when you come into a guitar that's priced maybe $50 difference, and you get these additional features. Is it worth looking into those pop-up pots? The different style of bridges, and also those are all very cool. Let's see. Was there anything more that aside from the 5 things that you've pointed out that are definitely worth mentioning?
I only pointed out 4. I forgot about the one thing, but
okay.
I did want to point out this other tool. This is a jack tool. So if your jack is loose, my jack is up here. If your jack is loose, and if you tighten it, you're turning the insides. You're going to break your wires. So you put the jack tool in here, you use your Allen wrench, tighten it in there so you can hold it, and then tighten it. And the luthier said put a little bit of clear nail polish on it, and that'll keep it tight for forever, and it'll crack easily enough when you crack open. When you
nice to know. I didn't know. I'm sorry, I didn't know that.
One thing I forgot about on this one, which you may not be aware of, these are locking tuners, and they're very, very nice to have. I'll have to take my background off next time, but they're very nice to have. You just loosen them like this, and a lot of professional players, they just shove them in, tighten them down, and wind them a little bit, and you're done.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
nice.
If you don't know they're there, which I did not when I bought this, I tried to take it out, and I pulled. I used the pliers and pulled it. That's not really a good idea.
Very good, very good. Well, listen, thank you for stepping us through these accessories, these features. To be honest with you, I am not familiar with some of those, only because I've been so focused on playing acoustic, and those are reminders. It's a nice reminder that these features do exist. If you decide for our community, if you're looking for those features, definitely ask about them. Listen, we got a DJ. We're going to go ahead and let you go because we've got one thing left. Thank you very much for that. Really appreciate everyone. Daniel's going to go ahead. He's got a couple of guitars.
At the end already, Tom?
No, we are not at the end because you're up, sir. And here's the thought. I want to go back to, if you've been looking at really the mainstream guitar makers, those brands that are out there. And do you have to get the Fender Strat? Do you have to get the Gibson? Do you have to?
No,
it's always
nice,
not,
Mr.
always
Tom.
nice.
You were so accurate on that.
But you have so many more choices, and Daniel has got a couple.
Peoples.
Yeah, there are other great guitar makers that are out there, and there are a couple that Dan has brought with him that he's going to show off right now. Again, these are just options for you outside of the mainstream, and these are considered mainstream. But if you're being swayed by someone who's a guitar player, it's like, no, you got to get this if you want to do that. You don't have to do anything you don't like. If you don't like it, then no. So Dan, show us what you got.
Well, you were talking about Strat styles, and do you have to buy a Fender and it be really expensive and all that? Well, no, you don't. This is actually a PV made by the PV USA. and they're relatively inexpensive, but they have that same the 5-way switch with the 3 pickups, single coil. You get that. You can still get that same Stratocaster sound out of the Peavies, and it's fairly decent quality. This happens to be actually my practice guitar, but I do have another one that I fixed up. That again, it doesn't have to be a brand name. This one right here, although this one is more on the pro side than it would be, but this company is also very good. And this brand name is called Fernandez. Let's see if I can get a shot of it right there. Fernandez. And this one happens to be one that has their patented sustainer pickup. Talk about different features, which will sustain a note until the battery dies. And of course, I do like tremolos. So most of my guitars have tremolo system or vibratos. Okay. Oh, and if you're wondering what that is, that's a wireless wireless fob, which if you don't want wires, they really work.
You go out walking into the crowd, don't you, with that?
Oh yeah, and I even had a wireless microphone set up too for my headset. Right. Another guitar I'd like to share, and this one is my near and dear, my favorite guitar that I use. I just don't have any room to have all these guitars around me, so I had to take a picture of this one. So I'm going to share this one. Does everybody see it okay?
We see it.
Let me see if I can't make it bigger. There we go. Okay. So this is my Carvin Ultra V, Carvin guitars, and another brand that at the time was competing with the Fenders and the Gibsons and the Epiphones and the Gretches. Carvin was a catalog-based guitar company, but they had a good quality guitar. They did build the store somewhere around you, I believe, Tom, right?
Yeah, Southern California. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And oh, by the way, that's not dirt that's on there. It's the reflections on this body. And this one, again, is a specialized guitar. Of course, this guitar went underwater in Hurricane Katrina. I had 8 feet of water in my house at the time. And when I come home, I found it with the case all nice and fuzzy. But I saved it. And the guitar itself, the neck and the body stayed awesome. But this had some great features, which is one of the things that I had put on this guitar, was I was able to split the pickups with these switches. So you'd go one way, go another, and I can make it either top or bottom pickup on each bank. And then it also had the 3-way position switch. And the very little bottom switch that's at the very end of all those is what they call it in and out of phase. And what that does is it changes the flow of electricity to the pickups, which gives it a different sound. It's different tones and stuff. And this is a tremolo bridge, vibrato bridge. And DJ was talking about the rollers. I don't think I'm actually showing what I want to show here. Let's see. Dang it. Y'all can't see my pointer, can you?
Yeah.
We can see your pointer.
Oh, yeah. You can? Oh, great.
Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't sure if it was or not. These are rollers across here. And you can see where the salt had taken off the finish. This was actually black chrome that was on all these parts on the fine tuners. And one thing that's unique about this particular bridge is that the strings hook into this right in here. It's actually a kind of a hook system. So when you draw it up and then put it under, which is really cool on this guitar, thumb locks instead of the usual tighten down with a hex wrench, which I'll show you in a second. These thumb locks work the same way. Yes, sir.
And that's as a result, because it's been known, electric guitars tend to go out of tune more than acoustic. I mean, that's something that I know that I've experienced with. Is that what
these happen? The harder you bend, you know, if you're a guitar player that bends a whole lot, you know, your strings are, you know, you're going to be loosening them up in the tuners.
yeah. Those features they're nice
so
to have.
The more you're bending, and that's the one thing about DJ's guitar having those locking tuners. That fashion of locking tuners, it's always been an age-old thing, especially with whammy bars, because you're really putting a stretch on them.
Definitely.
And so with the whammy bars, the locking nut was the big thing right here. And this, you know, you obviously have to walk around carrying a hex wrench in your back pocket if you want to change your strings. They're not very easy to do on the fly either.
Yeah. Do you recommend them for like the beginner level, or just something to look forward to?
Beginner level, I would probably say try it out. They're very temperamental as far as keeping them tuned and tuning the guitar themselves. In fact, my student right now has a Charvel with a tremolo on whammy bar on it, and he says his biggest difficulty is getting it in tune. And what happens is, as you're tuning one of these with the whammy bar, the bridge floats. So it'll actually, if you tune your E string, your low E, and it's all in tune, and by the time you get down to your high E and go back to check your low E is out. For that very reason. So as the tension goes, so does the bridge. So it's just something you have to keep into consideration. Takes a little while, and if you're going to use it to be able to do, you know, you're going to jam, you're going to a gig, you know, something you want to get it done ahead of time, which is one of the reasons why they put these fine tuners on these whammy bar bridges.
Fine tune. Because everyone's tried, you know, with the tuners, say, oh, too much, back it off. Those fine tuners are very handy.
Yeah, they really, really do.
All right, my friend, listen, I want to bring the panel back to close out today's guitar shop. Let me bring John back. Gents, thank you very much for sharing your expertise and your knowledge. And I want to ask each of you, we'll go around the table one last time, any final thoughts, any final advice, comments, and such that we can share with our community when it comes to the possibility of acquiring an electric guitar. And Paul, I'll start with you. Let me start with Paul.
Oh, okay.
I would say this is the best time if you want to get a high quality, low cost electric guitar. I know a lot of us have spent time talking about Gibsons and Fenders and the name brands. Both Gibson and Fenders understand that there's a market to get electric guitars into your hands. And so Fender has developed the Squire electric guitars, and those are awesome playing guitars for the price. Gibson has done the Epiphone line. I have not yet met an Epiphone Les Paul I don't like. It's almost like you're getting all of the quality from what's expected of those, and the playability is just great. And if you want to really save more money, you could go with the used market. It's a very, very good time to get electric guitars. Even these, quote, knockoff brands, Greg Bennett, Samick, really the best thing if you want to get started is you've got to play it. And the two things, in addition, or just to emphasize, I guess, Rich's list, a lot of this is subjective, but how the guitar feels in your hands, particularly your fretting hand, and then the pickups. I would recommend playing on an amp with just the clean sound and play with all the different pickups to hear the range before you start adding fuzz and all that stuff. But it's a great time. Look at Facebook Marketplace where you live now, and you're going to see a whole bunch of options, probably for less than $100 for you to get a very, very decent used electric guitar.
Real good, real good. Hey, John, I'm going to throw this question your way. And when it comes to techniques, acoustic and electric, what is it that'll work on acoustic, and what is it that you think, what could you recommend in terms of techniques for the specific to the electric that you never really were taught on acoustic? Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So, well, I would, we're taught it on acoustic. I mean, I do it with my students. I think the whole concept of movable chords, and certainly power chords, you're going to use both those techniques on an electric, probably, at least for me, more often on an electric than I would on an acoustic. And you can practice those things, but you'll find that, the movable chords, where you're using that first finger as a bar, it's just easier on an electric. And you can actually get some kind of interesting things by hammering on an electric that is just really difficult to do on an acoustic. So to me, that's where there's a lot of fun, and it's a little bit of a different technique, but it's it's certainly again, it's the same instrument, but I like the pasta thing. It might be mustacholi and it might be spaghetti, but they're all pastas. But yeah, I really enjoy switching off and between the two of them. And I will tell you that if I've gone a long time on acoustic and I go to my electric, it feels funny. And I have to play for a while before it feels right again. So, don't be surprised by that either.
God, real good. Did we get all your guitars in? Because you did bring some guitars with. Were you able to show us everything that you wanted to share?
Oh yeah, I showed the two I wanted to show, and that's the only other thing I maybe would mention to everybody is that there's this whole thing, kind of the way guitars are built, and Rich can talk to it more maybe than I can, but there's these bolt-on necks, and then there's glued-in dovetail necks, and there's the big thing there from a repair standpoint is if you have to reset a glued-in neck, that can be very, very pricey. Whereas having a neck reset on a bolt-on, well, you can probably do it yourself with a little bit of study, but you can certainly get it done inexpensively by a luthier. So, another thing to look at. And then I was going to add to Paul's comment about, get out there and play them. Even if you're going to buy something used, walk into one of the stores and play as similar a guitar as you can, because the feel of the neck and the necks tend to be thinner than an acoustic, and some of them are more the back of the neck is more tubular in shape as opposed to kind of a flat, kind of a D shape, and those are all things that you're going to want to kind of test out before you buy something to see what feels good to you.
Excellent. John, thank you so much for joining the panel today.
Well, thanks for having me.
You need to come back and join us for more in the future. Rich, would you like to add to what John said, or do you have any closing comments?
I think John and Paul hit the highlights of my life. You got to handle the guitar before you buy it, and you got to fall in love with it. And some of us like tone, some of us like feel. You fall in love with it, and you'll know when you got the right guitar. And it's easy to get confused. So that's why I discourage people from getting hung up on the checklist until after you're probably really close to buying. It's just got to feel right and sound right for you. And there are just so many variables out there that we've all got our own preferences. And sometimes you don't know you've got one until you feel a guitar that's got it.
Rich, I had a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Your list is awesome. There was one thing I think you're missing, though.
What's that?
If the vendor allows a payment plan.
Oh, I didn't think of that. Well, I said budget. Budget's important because I hate to see somebody fall in love with a $20,000 guitar
Hence
with a
the word
$500
payment
budget.
plan.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. Okay, we're close. Thanks.
Well,
I'll
real,
get that added.
Great job, Rich.
real good. Hey, Dan, any closing comments? Any
Yeah, I
thoughts?
do. Actually, I did want to bring up, I forgot to point out my Ultra V is a through the body neck. In other words, it's all built in the same. Of course, the neck wood being all the same, and then the sides are joined onto it. And then that red guitar is a bolt-on neck. There's a lot of advantages to those two, and there's disadvantages to each one also. So
Sure.
I would watch out for with the bolt-ons. If somebody's tried to take that neck on and off too many times, you got to watch out for loose bolts. The screws, you want to make sure that they're all going to be good and tight. And if
Right.
not, you'll have to have a luthier check it out and fix that. With the through the body, you don't want to go pushing on the body too much and then pushing your neck at the same time to try and bend a note. Eventually, that side is going to start cracking and could possibly just break off on you, depending on the guitar. Electric guitars can be as delicate as an acoustic guitar. So, and sometimes I've found the more I've paid for one, the more delicate it is than the opposite way. So, you know, they're like a fine piece of jewelry or any other thing that's of quality. So, and then there was one point I wanted to make about, okay, we've been talking about electric guitars, but then you got to get an amplifier. And
I'm gonna stop you right there, because this is how we get lost. You and me get lost in the conversation for like 3
I was going
hours.
to keep it short. I was going to keep it really short.
Okay.
I promise. Okay, you don't need to go out and buy a Marshall, a 100-watt Marshall amp. There are some wonderful little combo amps that you can get at a very reasonable price, which you can actually set up with whoever you're buying from. If you go to a music store to buy your electric guitar, you can also ask them about what can they do on a discount for this and that if I buy it together. So there's always that chance of forming a bundle, and they may even throw a cord in for you.
Awesome. And something tells me that's going to be a forthcoming episode of Guitar Shop Amplifiers.
I think you're right.
I have this feeling when we get off this call, the next conversation you and I have are going to be about that. But for right now, we are really close to that 90-minute mark, and we really appreciate your interest in these Guitar Shop presentations, all of the live events, your participation in this, either here or on the G4V Learning Center. Throw those comments out there. Share what it is that you're experiencing with your playing and your guitar journey. We love to hear from you. And, well, you know, one piece of advice I have for you with regards to electric guitar is just make sure your guitar's in tune, because those guys, they really go out of tune quickly. Trust me. So that'll be my tip, my last tip for you. So for Dan, for Paul, for John, and for Rich, I'm Tom Lamog, Guitars for Vets. We will see you next time at our live events. And till then, keep on rocking.